What is going on, folks? I am Goat, and welcome back to Warframe. So, since the Angels of Zariman released, and the Eximus rework released, and the Focus School released, and all these other things released, and then the Echoes of the Zariman released, which gave us even more stuff, I thought it was about high time that I actually go through, and this is probably going to be a 2, maybe 3-part video here, okay? So this is going to take up the next few videos. The reason being, though, is because it's very, very, very important, at least to me, that to kind of go over not just the loadout, right? So not just like I click on this and it shows you, that he's got the Kuva Brahma and Cyclonic Glaive Prime, so on, but how they're built as far as the frame and the weapons, and as to the why of things. So this may take a second. Now, once I get below like my top 23 frames, this is going to be dramatically different, okay? Because there's just some of these frames that are just in dire need. But these are frames that I have high functional use for, especially the top 11. Really, the top 17. I'm gonna be honest. The top 17 I have exceptionally high use for these days. Now, you may not see that reflected on videos, but it is what it is. I do a lot of solo play. I obviously don't record every fucking moment of the game, because if I did, you would see, basically 2,100 hours of fucking videos just popped up of me doing nothing but mission play, not just bullshit and screwing around. So let's dive in. Some of these we've talked about before. Some of these have been mildly altered and so on. So the last thing before we really look into the builds, this isn't necessarily an order of use. It's just kind of like, if I'm going steel essence farming, I'm probably going to take Nezhur or Lavos. If I'm going to really map control, I'm kind of all over the place. If I'm trying to speed run, I'm using Wukong or Gauss. If I'm farming, I'm using Titania and so on, and we'll get into that. But so the numbers don't reflect like a tier list per se, but I guess we could just call this casual, higher content gameplay builds, okay? And what I mean is like upwards of level 300. Like, that's not endurance running by any stretch. Like, you can go in the Kuva Fortress and run for like an hour and a half, and you're gonna look at level 300 Grenier, okay? And so some of these builds are going to be able to survive that. Some of these are not built for that specific purpose because of my complaints about the drop tables on the steel path. There's literally no point in playing some of these frames in those setups, because why? I mean, what's the benefit? If I want to go steel essence farming, I'm just going to nuke the enemy and call it square. So Nezhur Prime, in my opinion, probably one of the best tank frames in the game. Okay, without question. Without fucking question. Now, can he die? Yes. I'm going to preface every single build with the fact that I like having a level of vulnerability. I like having the challenge of staying the fuck alive. Now, that being said, at the present moment, this is being shot on basically Father's Day night, so June 20th. As of right now, I have 2 separate builds for Nezhur. This is my preferred build, but I've got a strength, just a pure dumped base strength build, and then I've got a strength efficiency build. Both are good in their own right. Like, honestly, I can take, obviously, you see I'm not really running this one at the moment, but Molt Augmented is on here because of the 0.16% ability chance, basically meaning I get upwards of a 40% strength increase. So, yeah, so both builds are running Arcane Grace and Molt Augmented for the Arcanes, simply because whatever does squeeze through, I want to make sure that it's caught. As far as like Arcane Grace, so just that much more survivability for me. The build is very, very simple. I don't give a shit about range. I don't care about any one of the abilities except for the Subsumed Empower. Okay, so the Subsumed Empower and then Boarding Halo. So, not taking into account Molt Augmented or whatever I get shot at, the base damage absorption Warding Halo armor that I get is going to be 10,461. And it's multiplied by 9.25. So if I get shot with like 2,000 points of fucking damage, that's going to be multiplied by 9.25 and added and applied additively to that 10,000, and so on and so forth. Like, it's multiplied time and time again over like that. So having been shot from multiple fucking sources, this shit goes up ridiculously high. This is a hugely survivable build. It's extremely comfy. You cast Empower, and as soon as that Warding Halo drops, you basically jump into a crowd, cast Warding Halo. You know, or if you're like fighting Grenier and Corpus per se, like if you're not doing Infested and you're doing Grenier Corpus or Corrupted, basically just make sure you're in the line of fire of enemies and jump in, and you become invulnerable while you're casting it, and then you absorb whatever damage they throw at you, and it gets multiplied into a ungodly amount of armor. Like my average armor, if I'm barely being touched, is usually like 18 to 24,000. I've had it go with this build now with Molt Augmented, I've had it go as high as 1.2 million. Monster had his go to 1.64 million, if I remember correctly. So yeah, this is a really chunky build. Now, Power Drift is not a necessity, and the reason being is because Warding Halo nullifies knockdown, so a chance to resist knockdown is literally nothing. This is here solely for the ability strength. So if you're questioning if you need Power Drift or if you don't have Power Drift, we're only talking 355 compared to 370, especially if you have a maxed out Molt Augmented and you're at 355% ability strength. That's 60% ability strength when that bitch is maxed out. So yeah, go Void Plume farming. You'll make up for it abundantly high. Trust me, well worth it. This is my build. Is it worth 2 Umbral Forma? Yeah, it is. So that's my Nezha Prime build. Companion is a Panzervorpal. Yes, it's really funny to see Tampon is bleeding out on the fucking screen pop up. As a lot of enemies have, or a lot of pubs have seen and laughed about. The Kuva Brahma, a weapon needs absolutely no fucking introduction. It is literally a cluster bomb bow and arrow. It's fucking huge. It does a lot of goddamn damage, both direct and AoE. It's a high crit weapon. And surprisingly, even though the status is really 33.6%, which is not that fucking high, this thing procs pretty fucking often and continues to affect enemies. So, I mean, is this a perfect build? No, probably not. Perfect for me. It tears shit up. So, there you go. I mean, you can see even with the off polarization, because this was actually base damage. I still have fucking 16 points left after going to max rank 5. Would I recommend doing more than one Naramon? Probably not. I mean, if you're not focused into doing any sort of status proc whatsoever, sure, do 3 Naramon across the bottom. You know, can I change this around? Take 100 munitions off and stick a heat proc on here instead. Kind of move these around, jumble the fucking polarizations around. Yeah, sure. Having a double vigilante on here just increases your your crit chance that much more, which is good. But I mean, this is just a viral impact build that has a blast staggering effect from its radial attack, and it does like 6,000 and change for the radial attack. So it's a very good weapon. Tenet Cycron. Now, Tenet Cycron, in my opinion, is probably in the top 5. I'm not saying top, like being the top 5. I would personally call this probably number 2 or 3 on the list of get the fuck out of here, I'm going to melt your face type of weapons. If I had to put them in order in my personal use, I'm going to go Tenet Cycron, Kuva Nukor, Katabalist. Those are my personal top 3 favorites. A lot of people will disagree with that, but I'm going to tell you right now, this Tenet Cycron is a mean son of a bitch. Okay, now, is the statistical numbers behind the Cycron as good as the Nukor? No, absolutely not. On a basic build, you can get basically, with 360/60s and galvanized shot, you can get 150% status chance and I think like a 4.5 multiplier. We'll see that in a moment when I get to Protea. So, yeah, I mean, the numbers are better for the Nukor, but my problem is that it's it's a radiation proc. It's an innate radiation proc with the Kuva Nukor. And to me, that's a bad thing. Okay? I am not a big fan of radiation procs. I'm just really not. Yes, does it cause confusion? Does it make your life a little bit easier when the enemies are not shooting at you? Yeah, sure. Especially at higher levels. Yeah, sure. I'm not going that fucking high. I can absorb, especially with this build, I can absorb, level 300 enemies shooting at me. I'm fine with it. This is a heat viral build, and I swear to God, it fucking nukes enemies. So yeah, it's good. It's very good, actually. Cyclone. Glaive Prime, again, another weapon that does not need an introduction, but people just sometimes don't understand glaives. Glaives are a three-bladed weapon that have a innate 4/ proc, passive function, because physics. Let's just call it what it is. It only has a 48% status, but if you blow this motherfucker up at somebody, it's guaranteed it will status proc them, and that proc fucks up everything. Acolyte, I mean, like, if you blow this thing up next to an acolyte, the acolyte will literally take like 1/8 of its health every time the proc hits it. So this build it's exceptionally good. Again, is it worth an Umbra Forma? Yes. Do you need an Umbra Forma? No. No, you don't. You actually don't. You can get away with doing like 2 others, so like you can do Corrupt Charge and Killing Blow and get what you need out of that, but this is solely functional on the melee heavy attack damage, which is you blowing the glaive up, and heavy attack wind-up speed, extra critical damage, which helps with potential status procs plus your critical damage in general, and it is also more heavy attack speed, take away the bounce but increase the blast radius, so more damage, and then some status, base damage, more crit, initial combo to make sure that when you chuck this son of a bitch, it has much more punch to it. Now, that being said, yeah, when you use it, you're only going to get like a ×2 multiplier, but it does not fucking matter because of the length of time that goes by with you chucking this thing and blowing it up. You're going to lose your combo stack anyway, so having a -50 to the combo duration means dick, okay? It gets a ×2 stack every time you blow it up, and then it just resets. But believe me, this thing hits, in the right set of circumstances, I've had this thing hit about 5.5, 6 million points of fucking, crit damage. So yeah, it's a really good setup. So off to Lavos. Lavos is in my top 3 of frames, okay? He just really is. Very misunderstood frame. A lot of people just find him as gimmicky and a good railjack pilot and so on because he runs on cooldowns. Well, that's because apparently people have not put a lot of time into Lavos. Now, some can say that about Ureli, and some can say that about Geyer and other things, but with Geyer being nerfed and Ureli just being garbage pretty much the whole time, it's a little bit more difficult to say that Lavos is crap in comparison to those two. Now, Geyer can do some serious damage, but considering they nerfed her in the first 24 hours of existence and nerfed her most potent destructive ability, it's just like, I hate the frame now. Because I saw what it did in day 1. Yeah, I plat sped that bitch. And I saw her just destroying maps, even though she had no survivability. I was like, fuck yeah. And then they nerfed her, and it was like, fuck no. So she's way down on the list. Lavos, on the other hand, is pure status. So to truly understand Lavos, you got to understand the basics. Okay, if you touch an energy or universal orb, if you've transmuted it, it gives you 10 seconds of status immunity. That is amazing on the Steel Path, first of all, because first and foremost, you are going to get energy drops, and every time you touch one, you get 10 seconds of status immunity. So no matter what the fuck you're going against, you have 10 seconds of you ain't touching this shit. Like, you'll take true damage, but you won't take status damage at all. His first ability is a pure heal. So as long as you don't whip an Aximus with Overguard, it's a pure heal. Plus, by the way, it's 2,910 points of pure toxin damage, which ignores most armor and all fucking shields. And it drains the enemy's health by 43.6% in doing so. Yeah. So again, as long as there's not an Aximus with an Overguard up, you will completely fully heal. I don't care if you have 20 fucking hit points left, you will fully heal back. Vile Rush, I think, is the most gimmicky of the abilities, but I will tell you right now, do not helmet the abilities onto Lavos. You will literally fuck your build. Okay, you will fuck his entire kit up by putting any helmet abilities on it, and I will explain. It's pure cold proc based on your range, and you basically slide a distance, throw a bunch of vials, and, booger enemies up. So it is what it is. So it's got an explosion radius, a duration of how far you go unless you run into something, plus damage per second cold proc. So it's basically just a freeze enemies in place kind of ability. It's really kind of a gimmicky thing. Transmutation Probe is functional and shit at the same time. Now, the functional side of Transmutation Probe is that it is a stagger ability, being electricity. So it's a base 727.5 with this build, stagger of electricity. So lower level enemies are just fucking dead. Steel Path, it just staggers them. But it transmutes every single fucking drop Any kind of ammo is all of a sudden universal. Any kind of energy is a health or energy if you need it. And on top of it, it also drops the cooldown of the timers. So it's a decent ability. It's really kind of done a little stupid, but the ability itself isn't bad. I just personally think that the efficiency side of Lavos shouldn't be based on the third ability. And that one, obviously, like I said, is electricity. And then Lavos' bread and butter, Catalyze. Aside from Ophidian Bite, Catalyze is absolutely ruthless. Now, it doesn't scale exceptionally well to higher tier enemies, but again, I don't run exceptionally higher tier. Like level 300 is about as high as I'll take it. Maybe 3.25. You know, it's like maybe 325, depending on how long I feel like running. But I don't usually run on a Kuva Fortress or you know, in the Void for survivals and shit like that. If I'm doing Steel Essence farming, I literally, you know, do Infested because it's quick and easy. I mean, the time frame's the same, but I'm not fighting my ass off the entire time. But it's a pure heat proc. It's like a guaranteed pure heat proc with a range of 36.25 meters. So this motherfucker reaches out and touches some motherfuckers. Now, the other part of his passive, though, is that you can combo each one of the elements to create a secondary element. So, like, if you want to make this viral, you're going to do heat and viral damage, because heat isn't part of viral. You know, if you want to do transmutation probe into viral, you'll get electricity and viral. Now, if you want to do viral rush, you're going to combo that cold into viral, and it's just going to be a very punchy viral hit. And then obviously the first one, if you combo that into viral, you're going to basically just make a very punchy viral hit instead of pure toxin. So, but you can combo all four abilities, which is inherently the problem with you if you helminth anything onto Lavos, because you will take away that entire elemental combination from Lavos's kit. So if you take Vial Rush off and stick like Dispensary on there, you no longer have a cold proc available to combo into anything else. That's the problem. It means you can't make Magnetic to blast shields off in a large radius. That means that you can't make Viral. Yeah, it's a problem. I mean, you don't really want to make blast damage because that's a waste of time. But although the ability is gimmicky, it hurts the entire kit because you lose your ability to cast cold damage. Now, that being said, Lavos' build, for me, this is the primary build that I have ended up going with, and I don't know why, but it keeps innately showing that the status duration is different from that one. I don't know why. It's weird. I used to run pure strength and range with a tanked out efficiency because I didn't give a shit. But what I was most intrigued about with that was actually increasing not just duration, but the status duration to 124%. Just to kind of fuck enemies up a little bit more. And you'll see that I'm doing Molt Augmented here plus Growing Power, so I can really get some increased damage off of this, which is why I'm not so hung up on running a pure strength build, which is like 315% or some shit. Yeah, 315%. 291 plus an additional 25 plus an additional 40. I'm beating out that 315. Yeah, I mean, yeah, granted, could I do that and have stupid amount of power? Yeah, sure, but this is more than enough, trust me. As long as you don't get yourself in a crowd to where you're stuck on the cooldown of Ophidian Bite, which, by the way, is a whopping 8 fucking seconds, this is a stupid good build, okay? It really is. It's a very good build. Is it perfect? No, but is it good for me? Abso-fucking-lutely. The Trumna, big modified necromech gun that is sold with Father. Pain in the ass to get because you have to farm 20 Grandmother tokens to get Saraglass shards. That's the one thing that's annoying as shit about getting the Trumna or the Sepulchrum, is you have to have 20 Grandmother tokens to get one Saraglass shard to build this gun. Now, there is two downsides to the Trumna and its base function, okay? It has an insanely bad, like, I will take the arcane off, it has an insanely horrible reload time, 5 goddamned seconds, but as you see with primary merciless, it goes down to 3.8. Now that still seems atrociously bad, but you can get around it with the alternate fire function. Now the other part of this weapon that people get very irritated with is actually pretty funny, but I do understand it. It's the recoil from this weapon. Well, take 60% away from it with stabilizer, it becomes much more controllable. Now the Riven on this is a plus status chance plus critical damage minus mag capacity. Base magazine size is 200, so I'm down to 164. I'm over it. Even on the steel path, I can still get at least 2 charges out of this weapon of alt fire. And that's how you work around the reload time, is that you basically alt fire the nearest group of enemies and then jump into that group as you're reloading. By the time they get close to start fucking you up again, I mean, this thing blows up in a large area. And it just boogers up enemies and staggers them really badly. So it gives you time of that 3.8 seconds to reload. Or you can just run like a bitch and reload and then come back and kill them again. Either way, whatever works for you. But this gun is exceptionally good. I mean, it is exceptionally good. The LATAM I went over not too long ago. I'm still basically on the same build, low status, low crit, decent multiplier. Get the fuck out of here and die. This gun is ridiculously good. The Legion, a dojo polearm, right? Base toxin, status-based polearm. And I mean to tell you, this is a viral / impact build of 136.9% status on a 0 forma build. No umbral mods, no nothing, just a couple of prime mods that you can get from fucking Borrow. Have a nice day. This is a very, very punctual polearm for a status polearm. It's good once you've got the enemies primed with other damages from your firearms. If you have to, like if you should oddly enough run out of ammo with Lavos and this is on here, it's a very good weapon to just beat the shit out of enemies with. On here, I have Jesus Christ because, again, just like Tampon, seeing Jesus Christ has been revived is absolutely hilarious in a squad. On to the next one. Protea. Protea. My God, Protea. Man, this girl is fun. She's fun and she's good. Now, this build is probably going to look very different from other people. As you can see, I've got a subsumed ability in her 4. I put silence on her because I don't want Eximus casting abilities at me. Can they still shoot me? Sure. They're going to have a hard time doing it. But silence nullifies the new Eximus rework from the Eximus actually being able to cast abilities at you. They can still shoot at you, and their overguard still keeps them from taking, you know, any kind of CC controlled function, but there is no CC control function other than silence in this build, so I don't care. Let them not be able to cast abilities at me while I kill them. I'm fine with that. It's Protea's build. 6 forma build, shit ton of range, decent amount of duration, pretty damn decent, you know, at least polite level of ability strength. Again, I took her 4 off. Some people love using her 4 basically as a, you know, a level of survivability coupled with, you know, it's kind of like a tether mine. You tether yourself in time, and if you get fucked up, you just tap the ability again, zap yourself, and rewind everything, and you're alive again. Just fine. Personally, it fucks with my eyes, so I got rid of it. Is Protea worth an Umbra Forma? Oh, you bet your sweet fucking ass she is. Oh, dude. She's good. Oh my God, she's good. So yeah, so I mean, this is basically a type of shield gate build, but it's not a full shield gate build because obviously you'd have to run Arcane Aegis plus Brief Respite to really kind of go for a pure shield gate build, but with her satellites, they work really well hand in hand. But this is an exceptionally good setup, and Banshee is an easy frame to subsume. You're gonna see other frames with silence on there since the Eximus rework. Okay, the lens, Dojo, Corpus, bow and arrow. This thing is a mean son of a bitch. Now, hammer shot is going to be the only problematic mod to get. If you're not going to use hammer shot, considering this weapon doesn't give a shit about status chance, just basically go for what is the name of the mod? Vital Sense. Like, you can just stick with Vital Sense, and then you can stick, like, you know, a base damage mod in here. Sorry. Because even though primary merciless is going to stack up base damage, you can just put more base damage to it. Because putting status mods on here is literally useless. It's just absolutely useless. So just go for fire rate. You know, you don't have to go with prime pressure point because you can stick cautious shot in here. I mean, yes, this is a 7 forma build. you know. So sure-footed or prime sure-footed is obviously on the frame going to be a little bit more easy to work with, but I preferably don't like using prime sure-footed so much. I'd rather just, you know, either have a frame that doesn't get staggered or use something that's not going to self-stagger me. Have a nice day. Yeah, it's good. Now the Kuva Core, oh, 10.5, sorry. My viral build is a little ridiculous, okay? Just saying. 210% status with a 10.5 multiplier and an absolutely tanked critical chance. Again, this is an innate radiation proc coupled with my built-in viral proc. So I actually added this and this in for the radiation, and then this and this for my viral. But because it's an innate radiation is why I don't actually prefer it. Yes, radiation is not a bad element to use just for its confusion factor, but and at this level of status, you're guaranteed you're going to proc at least twice, so you're probably going to proc with both, which is good. But I just personally prefer the Cycron. I think they're both exceptionally good weapons, but I just personally prefer the Cycron. And then dual Karis, very high slash dual swords. High crit, just from a base standpoint, it's a 4-forma build. You know, but high crit, good multiplier running Organ Shatter and Gladiator Might, plus Blood Rush, stacking up your critical chance with your combos. Okay status, but I mean, you're going to be getting guaranteed slash procs out of these things anyway. So adding some more slash in here just for the fucking hell of it. I mean, it's one of those just for the fuck of it, you know. Yeah, it's good setup. Pretty damn good setup. Would I put an Umber Forma on it? No. I mean, you can, as you see, this thing comes with no polarizations. So, boom, 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 you know, get the fuck out of here, 3 Matter Eyes and, you know, a Naramon, and you're good to go. And I've got another Panzer on there named Hentai, which is my one against Corpus. Now, Wukong. Wukong is a very, very good all-purpose frame. It's a good lazy frame. A lot of people take that the wrong way, too, but Wukong is actually a very good lazy frame. Okay, now I've got 3 builds for Wukong. I use him in the index, so I've got dispensary on him to help buff the energy. Now, granted, while you're in the index, that ability will run out and you'll stop dropping energy because the energy orbs will stop spawning. So if you collect too much and forget to cast dispensary and keep it going, you will run out of the ability to use the son of a bitch, because trying to charge yourself with Wellspring and in the index just don't work. You don't get enough energy. So it is what it is. But this is my basic all-purpose build. The Celestial Twin has like 4,615 points of damage, plus using the base build of my weapons, and duration is a little bit lower, but using Arcane Tempo coupled with the Bubonico makes this an exceptionally punctual fucking build. And just for general all-purpose functions, only 3 Forma into this, no Umbra Forma whatsoever. This is a very, very decent setup. I also have a spy setup. Now you're going to see one that says Eidolon Hunter. Don't just ignore that, because that was just me dicking around with Wukong running Eidolons. So I could fly around and chase the bastard and, you know, heal my frame and shit like that before I started using Volt. Now this is my spy build. 321% duration, and I mean to tell you, Cloudwalker at 6.42 seconds is absolutely, no pun intended, stunning. You will zip across fucking maps. Like, you could go do Bode on Cirrus to go farm thermite rounds and other mods, other good mods from that location. I think thermite rounds comes from there. That's one on the Bubonico. I'll tell you in a second. It's the heat one, but whatever. But yeah, it's boy, this build is exceptionally good for Wukong, and Wukong ignores almost every single type of scanner. There's only one scanner, and it's actually on Bode. It's a dual beam scanner that can read Wukong when he flies through it in Cloudwalker. Aside from that, you're literally damage immune, status immune, and as long as you're moving, you're constantly healing yourself in Cloudwalker until you max your health out. So his first ability creates basically a specter with the opposite of whatever your weapon is. So I run a glaive as myself, and then I let the specter run the Bubonico, and I basically just annihilate the map. His second ability is Cloudwalker, so that's self-sustainable healing and travel. His third ability is Defy, so that's armor building. And then his fourth ability, this stupid Primal Fury big staff. It's a fucking joke. It's a piece of shit. I do not like the staff. I think out of all of his abilities, this is the only part of his kit that sucks, and just subsume this piece of shit off and put something actually useful in there. For the spy build, it doesn't matter because I won't even be breaking that bitch out, so there's no point in subsuming. But yeah, very good. Very, very, very good setup. The Bubonico. Want to kill enemies? Want to kill enemies really good? Be mastery rank 14 and go farm Scattering Inferno and Critical Deceleration. And then, oh, I do not want to do that. And then get Primed Ravage and the Galvanized mods. Just get this set up and have a nice fucking day. It's 4 Forma and it destroys. This is very simple. 1 burst of alt fire into a crowd, 205% status at a 7.3 multiplier, doing heat and viral damage. And then shoot them with the primary fire, which is a 75% crit for a shotgun at a 4.8 multiplier, still doing heat, impact, puncture, slash, and viral at 2230 points of base damage. You will fucking kill enemies. It is that simple. The Athadai, interesting little weapon. I got critical damage, which is obviously your critical multiplier, reload speed, which is lacking on the Athadai, and then damage to infested does not fucking matter. This is just a base damage critical build. Nothing insane. Works. Heat, then viral, and then the worthless of all puncture. So it is what it is. Pretty okay. And then the Serrata, the underestimated glaive in my opinion. For the non-endurance, more casual runner, the Serrata is a very, very good glaive. It is slower throwing than the Glaive Prime, the Glaive Prime being 1.25 speed, attack speed, to where the Serrata is a base 1, like a lot of weapons. This isn't as high a crit, not as high of a multiplier. It is higher status due to the build, but this is a base toxin weapon, so if I wasn't worried about the status of things, I could change that around and put like an 8-point, viral damage mod in there in its place and just add more damage because I can. Don't need to though. I like this build. It works very fucking well. We're talking hundreds of thousands into the couple million points of damage. Is it as good as the Glaive Prime? Absolutely not. Does it still get slash procs? Yes, it does. Plus it's base toxin. Have a nice fucking day. It works very well. On here we have Jesus Christ. You're gonna see Jesus Christ a lot. Wisp. Now, I run my Wisp very differently from a lot of people. Wisp is an exceptionally good frame. She is insanely and easily top tier frame. She's very good. I use her for pure crowd control and defensive squad support. That is what I use my Wisp for. So on her, you can see I helmet out her Will-O-Wisp because that isn't crowd control of any fucking kind, and I put on Mesa's Shooting Gallery. I don't even use Soul Gate. The only thing that I use is Reservoir's Shooting Gallery and Breed Surge. Here's the build. Single Umbral Forma, and basically you dump into ability strength, ability duration, then some range, fuck efficiency. As long as you're running Xeneric, you're not going to need it. Like, because of how high of the health hit that you're getting, you're getting 85.2 points of health per second. You almost don't even need to run Arcane Grace. You can literally put anything else on her that you want to, if you want to. I personally just like to have the buffer. But the whole point is to heal yourself. And yeah, it's 2 Umbral Forma. I'm sorry, 2 Umbral Forma. She's worth it. She's 100% fucking worth it. I actually did 2 Umbral Forma, and truth be told, I don't even remember why I did it, because I could have just fucking polarized a Matter Eye for Blind Rage. But whatever. It is what it is. The Shidu. Again, I've got a Riven for the Shidu. It's reload speed and critical chance. That's pretty much it. Very simple. Is it perfect? Nope. But does this build destroy? Yep. Yes, it does. If I were to change over this Naramon polarization, which I very much could do, but if I were to change over this Naramon polarization to Infected Clip, I believe. Oop. Was that Naramon? Let's figure out what it is. Oh, it's Vazarin. My bad. Vazarin. I'm stupid. If I were to change it over to a Matter Eye, I would have enough space to put Prime Shred on there, which would make this thing run out of ammo really, really fucking quickly. But it is a battery-operated sentient arm, so it's pretty fucking good. Tenant Detron, one of the Sisters of Parvos weapons. Yeah, very, very good weapon. shotgun pistol, innate radiation, heat based on this particular one, just because I haven't gotten around to fixing it. Because I honestly wanted toxin, so this one is heat based. So this one's doing radiation, or it's doing viral, radiation, heat in that order. It's a very punchy son of a bitch. And it's alt fire, you better be ready to hang on to that motherfucker, because it's much like the Nagantaka alt fire. That bitch just barrel rises like a son of a bitch. But it's a good setup. Very, very, in my opinion, very good setup. And I still have an excess of 24 points. So I could just completely mismod the shit out of this thing and not give a fuck. Just saying. Sylvan Aegis Prime, pure heat, sword and board, man. Technically it's a mace. It's a mace and shield, but a good old sword and board. I mean, this thing is pure status all day long. Have a nice day. So, yeah, I mean, this is a heat corrosive, 111% status-based mace and shield, and fuck me running, is it good? And that's no polarizations. Again, we have gonorrhea on there. That's my panzer for infested. When we come to Volt, the Eidolon Hunter Extraordinaire. Again, you can see running Matarai with Volt. Highly suggest that, actually. I have two builds for Volt. I have a Steel Path build, which is no subsumed abilities whatsoever on either build. I got a Steel Path build, and then which is this one, and I've got my Eidolon Hunter build. The Eidolon Hunter build is very much focused into efficiency, some ability strength, and a little bit of duration. Most specifically into Rolling Guard is a huge thing, and an Arcane Nullifier to fuck off, do not touch my fucking energy by ignoring all magnetic procs. Have a nice day. Don't need a metric fuck ton of ability strength. Simply going with something like Power Drift and Intensify is more than enough. Simple 3-forma setup. And Rolling Guard, obviously you dodge roll and you become completely invulnerable for 3 seconds and you remove all status effects, and then it's only a 7-second cooldown. After running Lavos, 7 seconds ain't that fucking long, so it's a very survivable build. Steel Path build, a little bit more health focused because he doesn't have a lot of survivability aside from being able to build overshields, so a little bit more health focused. And it's more because I wanted to focus into ability strength, range, and efficiency and duration. So changed it up. Still have Arcane Nullifier because he's very much about energy, especially if you're trying to map control with his fourth ability. His fourth ability doesn't scale exceptionally well, but it does stagger the shit out of the map and give you time to kill. And when I'm using him on the Steel Path, I will run the Amprex, which the Amprex in itself is a mean little bastard. A lot of people, like, some people know what the fuck this weapon's about, but the Amprex is a mean motherfucker. 7 forma and get the fuck out of here. You are going to crit and kill a shit ton of enemies. And funny enough, you will throw, as long as you got 100 munitions on here, you will electric proc, you will viral proc, and you will slash proc quite a bit with this weapon. It's very good. But for the Eidolon runs, it is most certainly the Rubico Prime. Yeah, my entire hunt for hammer shot came down to this particular gun because I wanted a shit ton of possible I wanted a shit ton more critical damage, and then a possibility of actually adding more status chance, just because what's gonna take down the Eidolon best? Radiation procs. Have a nice fucking day. Pretty much nothing else in this kit matters except for this Rubico Prime and Volt, in my opinion. I mean, yes, can you focus on Sentinels? You know, like the Carrier Prime? Sure. You know, the Worm Prime, yeah, there's others. I don't. I'm not a pro Eidolon hunter. I don't even claim to be, but that's Volt. He's very good. Well, here, I didn't even finish his loadout, did I? Jesus Christ. So the French Tickler is the Vermisplicer. Obviously not the Vermisplicer skin. I got a Riven for it, so a big time bonus to critical chance, a very good bonus of basically no weapon recoil at this point, plus a mag capacity increase, which I am not mad at all. Yeah, this build is very high crit, respectable multiplier. Who gives a fuck about status per projectile? It's like whatever, you know. It's the 3 forma, and it kills quite exceptionally at that. And I call it the French Tickler because it looks like something out of a hentai comic. The Dakana Prime. This is a very potent sword. I'm not a big fan of most swords in this game. The two that I am a big fan of are the Broken War and the Nikana Prime. Broken War for its pure crit ability, the Nikana Prime for its slash procs, coupled with the fact that you can pretty evenly status and crit this weapon very well with a build like this. So we're talking 105% crit chance with a 6 multiplier, but still hitting 86.8% status, doing a viral slash build. And I mean to tell you, this is a very, very good weapon. It's one forma. And I want to say it was the Organ Shatter. I want to say it was the Matter Eye. I think it was one of the Matter Eyes. Very, very good setup, though. On to Zaku. On to Zaku, baby. Zaku is such an interesting fucking frame because one of Zaku's abilities, Zata's Whisper, which is funny enough his helmet ability, is literally one of the most OP power, like weapon power abilities that you have available. And it's because it uses void energy. And if you look up void energy on the Wikipedia, void energy is what's called a neutral damage type. Okay, so it doesn't have any negatives nor positives to any enemy. So it's really more in the range of just true damage. So Zata's Whisper with this build gives me an additional 56% void damage. So 56% basically true damage buff to my weapon. Okay, so it specifically says wield void damage for all attacks from equipped weapons when activated. So whatever the fuck you have equipped is now firing fucking void damage for 54.25 seconds. So whatever it is, use it well. I personally like using the Spyrex when I pop Zata's Whisper because it's very fucking powerful. So the Fel Arcs, Zaku, sorry. We'll go into the Fel Arcs in a moment. 3 polarization setup, a little light on efficiency, but very good ability, strength, and range, and duration. That's a big key with Zaku is duration. Do not want to forget about that. You can sacrifice some ability efficiency to get other stats where you need them, because he doesn't need to be stupid high health. The only reason I've got Umbral Vitality is just to help boost Umbral Intensify. Gives me a little bit more survivability, but as you can tell by I have like almost no shields, I have almost no armor, but I don't need it, trust me. His abilities alone are very good. Now the thing for me is that Zaku is more of a base star chart frame for me, or railjack frame, something like that. I don't really do much steel path with him. I very well could and do occasionally, but I have just other preferential frames. Typically it's either Nezha, Lavos, or Protea, or Octavia, especially as of recent. But yeah, so him being more of a base star chart frame puts the Fel Arcs into play, and honestly the Fel Arcs is a very good weapon for base star chart use. That's where it falls off though, where I thought it was going to be very good, not so much. So that build was basically due to its evolutions. The Tenet Spyrex, on the other hand, this is something that, man, if you apply that void damage, get the fuck out of here. Shit's gonna die. Again, this is base heat because I used, I want to say it was Nezha to start that sister at the time. So this is a base heat, but this is a very punctual base heat, impact, viral, and then minor amount of puncture. Very, very punctual build. 78% crit chance with a 5 multiplier, procking at 120 fucking percent. This is a very good weapon. It doesn't have a huge radial damage area, okay? It's only got like a 2-meter range, but if anything is within 2 meters of the enemy that you're hitting, they are getting fucked up. And you can increase this by taking Hornet Strike off and sticking, you know, a, Prime Fulmination, I think? Yeah, like you could put Prime Fulmination on here and increase it by 66%, but when you're talking about 2 meters, 66% of 2 meters, it's really not that much. So is it worth it to take base damage off and put increased blast radius on there for something that's not going to give you that much? Not really. It'll help, but it's not going to do as much as you think. And then yeah, you see this right, another dojo weapon, the Oma. Set of Tonfas. This is no forma, pure status build. And I know it doesn't seem amazing, but we're talking about attack speed plus critical chance per combo multiplier, which is okay. It's very low crit. but then Weeping Wounds for status per combo multiplier, which is where shit's at. And then obviously these things are slow as balls, so you know, getting a possibility for combo count chance is good, plus attack speed is very good, and then building a little bit more attack speed from Berserker Fury, you end up looking like a crackhead with these things. And they're pretty fucking thumping good, to be honest, for especially for a base star chart setup. This will handle everything on the star chart. This build, this entire setup here, this will absolutely handle the base star chart. And again, I have hentai for Corpus. Yes, I have like 5 panzers. I've got Tampon, Jesus Christ, hentai, gonorrhea, and waffle stomp, I think. Let me look. I'm curious. Yeah, I've got gonorrhea is right there, hentai is right there, Jesus Christ is right there, tampon and waffle stomp. Yep, those are my 5. I've got 1 for infested, 2 for Corpus, 2 for Grenier. I do it just for the name factor. There's literally no need to do anything like that. Now, Gauss or Gauss or whatever the fuck, I don't understand how to pronounce his name. I call him 1.21 gigawatts because he looks like the fucking DeLorean out of the Back to the Future. He's stupid fast. I would not recommend helmeting subsuming any abilities onto him. His kit is so fucking good. Okay, I mean, let's just be honest. Okay, moving generates an electrical current that fills Gauss's batteries. Just moving. Shields recharge up to 120% faster, while the recharge delay is up to 80% shorter based on the battery level. It's a hell of a passive. Mach Rush goes stupid fucking fast and basically bowling enemies. Yeah. And then hold it to just continue to run. Plus you just knock the shit out of enemies doing it. Cool, right? Kinetic plating. Generate armor plating that converts a portion of absorbed kinetic damage, physical heat, cold, and blast into energy. Also protects Gauss from being staggered and knocked down. Damage resistance is relative to battery levels. So if your battery's low, you're not going to get that good. So it's going to be more down to the 19% range instead of 95. Thermal Sunder is either a heat or a cold proc. Siphon kinetic energy from the area, charging the battery and inflicting cold status to nearby enemies. Hold reverses the process, draining the battery and inflicting heat status on nearby enemies. Believe me when I tell you, if you just cold proc them and don't worry about draining the shit out of your batteries, you will fuck enemies up. Because they will be popsicles. Everything but Eximus with Overguard. And they still get cold proc, they just slow down. And then Redline is increased fire rate, increased attack speed, increased reload speed, increased holster speed, and just generally fuck off. Gauss's kit is absolutely banging. Now, for the longest time, I had a hard time dealing with Mach Rush because it just fucked with my eyes because the map goes blurry like you're doing 180 miles an hour down the highway. But this is the build that I kind of went up to. You don't need a ton of ability strength because you're not trying to kill them with cold procs, you're just trying to cold proc them. You're not trying to kill him with heat procs, you're just trying to booger him up. So that's how it is. Single Forma setup. Farm him on the Disruption on Sedna. Have a nice day. He is an exceptionally good frame. And yes, you can run this setup on the fucking Steel Path. Absolutely. The Exceltra. Some elitists will tell you that the Exceltra is crap. I'm here to tell you that if you can get a good Riven for this motherfucker, it actually is not. Even without the Riven, it still is not. You will still get like 105% crit out of this thing, or at least 90% crit. Status is absolute trash on this thing, but that really doesn't matter. Your big bread and butter is critical delay and prime firestorm, coupled with having primary merciless on this motherfucker, plus having a mutation mod. Considering it's already decently critted anyway, I would definitely recommend rifle ammo mutation over vigilante supplies specifically, very, very, very specifically, because, well, let's be honest here, guys. Rifle ammo mutation picks up better, or mutates ammo better, and this thing plows through ammo when you're using it with Gauss. The fire rate is so ridiculous, you feel like you're firing a minigun. So the Akimbo Jagara Prime. A lot of people don't like these guns either. Again, I got, critical damage, heat, and critical chance, so it's pretty good little setup, but this isn't a crit-based weapon, it's status. So it's really more the crit multiplier I was worried about. It's whatever. Crit multiplier and base heat, I'm just really never mad at that. I mean, it's pretty fucking straightforward. You know, I mean, the base damage shot off this thing is 654.4 of pure status, you know, of almost 100% status. I'm just not upset with this. They work, especially with gauze, man, you fire them like crazy. And then the Broken War, I was talking about how much of a crit monster the Broken War is. Yeah, 131% with a 5.5 multiplier, and this is a one forma setup. This is slash, then viral, then impact and puncture, which punctures, meh, whatever. But this particular build, is it perfect? No. Does it work? Yes. Very well. Saren, the murdering queen of corrosion and toxin. Saren. Now, Saren, in my personal opinion, goes hand in hand with the Sobek, and as crazy as that may sound to some people, I will explain why in a moment. So this is the build that I ended up going with. This is basically a regenerative bolt, grace, energized build. You don't need a shit ton of health when you can literally heal in 8 goddamn seconds as long as you have energy. So growing power to help increase ability strength, which is just nothing but a pure win. Yeah, 6 forma setup. And like you see, I mean, all this crap that I've got on here, and I can still run an off-suited, you know, polarization and be just fine. So, you know, 207% ability strength, 190% ability range, 105% ability efficiency, and down to 95% ability duration, which does hurt your spore decay rate to a point, but if you're using everything properly, it ain't gonna fucking matter. Okay? It's just not. Is it the right way to go about things with Saren? Not really. If you're, especially if you're going into endurance stuff, but considering I don't give a shit. Because spores do corrosive damage at a range of 114 meters, and it's 20.7 corrosive per second with a growth of 4.14 per enemy. Status chance of 103%, so they're definitely getting procced with corrosive, even though it's been nerfed, with a spread radius of 30.4 meters. The downside is the decay rate is 10%, and the reset decay is 9%, which 9% is okay because that's slightly buffed from normal, but there's no raise in the decay rate. So that's a bit of a problem. Molt, because of regenerative molt, 103.5 health per second for 10 seconds. She's only got 375 health. So it's really like 4 seconds and you're healed. You're healed. Have a nice day. Toxic Lash. Now, between Spores and Toxic Lash, this is where the Sobek shines with her. The Sobek and the Serrata both absolutely shine with Saren. While active, attacks deal additional toxin damage. This effect doubles for melee strikes, Serrata. It's toxin based. Instantly burst spores when attacking afflicted enemies. So I'm guaranteed a 62% toxin proc or toxin strike damage increase to the weapon. So you hit with spores, start fucking them up, you pop Toxic Lash, and then you break out your Sobek or your Serrata. Now the Sobek is a automatic shotgun, but what makes it really cool is that this is a corrosive heat build. Corrosive impact heat, technically, running acid shells. Kill an enemy with the Sobek, not letting them get status proc, but actually kill them with the Sobek. Enemy goes boom within 15 meters. So everything around them in 15 meters gets fucked up. Using Toxic Lash, it is just deadly with this weapon. Especially if they're already afflicted with spores. So in between running a Panzerwolfenfilo plus the spores you're throwing, oh my sweet Jesus. This gun is absolutely banging. Absolutely banging. With Saren. Running the Kuva Twin Stubbas for a secondary just because they're fun, they're high status, decent enough critical multiplier. You know, I mean, a basic bitch, you know, it's a heat viral slash build. It's okay. It's not super amazing. Part of the problem with the Kuva Twin Stubbas is the recoil, take it away with steady hands, and they're actually very fun to use. They do damage, especially with Saren, they tend to do a lot of damage. And then the Serrata is exactly like it was on Wukong. So Korra, whips and chains, the crazy cat lady. So, you could farm with Korra. I still say she is literally the best farming frame in this game right now. A lot of people are, oh no, what about Necros? Necros is good. Do not get me wrong. Necros is very good. But when you can get basically double fucking, you know, 65% chance of basically double drops, which I'm gonna tell you right now happens a lot, building a farming build is very good. Now, if you don't feel like farming with her and you just want to beat the shit out of enemies, then you can go with this build. This is a pure whips and chains build. You basically build up, you basically prime enemies with one of two stat stick primary or secondary weapons, and then you build for, like, personally, I like using the dual Cronin or twin Cronin or whatever the hell they are. Cronin Prime, sorry, twin Cronin, what the fuck. I like using the Cronin Prime because they are a zero delay weapon. They just fucking fly. And then just stack Gladiator mods on this bitch, plus Blood Rush, and build up your combo very quickly, and then just break loose with your Whip Claw, and you will be, banging tens of millions of damage as soon as accumulating Whip Claw stacks up. It is a destructive build, to say the least. And just so you know, Power Drift is literally on there just because I felt like putting it on there and I had an extra one. That's all. That's the only reason. If you wanted to do other, polarizations, you could, like, because, overextended streamline, and then here you've got ability overextended and auger reach, so you could literally do a Naramon and a Vazirant and put preparation up here instead, and always cap your energy with the accumulating Whip Claw when you first start or when you revive or get revived. Now you'll notice with the accumulating Whip Claw build, I did take off Venari. As far as controlling Venari, you still have Venari, but when she dies, she dies. And I put silence on here, that way the Eximus can't sit there and proc me with their fucking abilities. And Snare doesn't work anyway, but the Whip Claw sure beats the shit out of them. Now for priming purposes, I have a high status Aeolac build. Specifically just the alt fire, one or two alt fires into a crowd that primes them with whatever damage you're trying to hit them with. This is an 8 radiation with viral puncture, slash, and heat. Epitaph, always a good primer because it's a good area of effect weapon, just like the alt fire of the Aeolac. 150% status with a, pretty damn respectable fucking damage area. Where is it? 8 fucking meters of damage area. And then obviously we just saw the Cronin Prime build, and then I'm running Gonorrhea on here. Because Gonorrhea, let me go. One more loadout. We'll do the Pixie Devil. Titania Prime. Again, you see me running the Serrata. Pure Toxin, especially if you're doing like a Void Flood and you're running into Corpus, throwing a Pure Toxin Glaive if you're not in the Razorwing build is actually preferable, because you will literally just bypass their shields and hit them with the Toxin damage. So it's pretty cool. Pretty good stuff. So this is a Razorwing damage absorption build. Okay, so yeah, you lose some duration. With her first ability, basically just, precast, status immunity onto yourself. As it says, hold the ability to cast the immunity onto Titania. Yeah, so you basically just make yourself status immune. You pop Full Moon to give yourself a damage increase, health increase, and armor increase. The armor's kind of whatever. But then you also put Aerodynamic to drop 24% of, or give yourself a 24% damage reduction, then Aviator for an additional 40%. So now we're up to status immunity, and then 64% of damage reduction as long as you're in the air. Well, guess what you're doing while you're in the fucking air? You're in Razorwing. Means you're flying around. So you're in the air. You have a massive amount of damage immunity. This build is a lot of fun. Arcane Velocity is specifically focused on her Dex Pixia, which we will get to. Primary I typically run as the Stalta or the Amprex, usually the Stalta, because it's pretty even keel. 72% status, 72% crit with a 66% status with a 4 multiplier. The alt fire is like the absolute king of bum fights. It's a fun weapon to run. It's not perfect, but it's good. Magnus Prime, pretty solid status pistol. It's not the best in the game, but it's pretty damn solid, so not mad at that. Serrata we've already seen. Now the Dex Pixia Prime, basically built very similar to Mesa's Regulators Prime. I mean, you're basically going for fire rate, base damage. The only problem is that using Arcane Velocity doesn't help a whole lot with the Dex Pixia because it don't crit that much. So even running Prime Pistol Gambit, you're only at 28.7%. So you are going to crit because of how many fucking bullets you're running. You're just not going to get the kind of fire rate that you get out of Mesa. You're going to get the increased fire rate. So for that, we're going to stop this video right here, and we'll get into Octavia, which is a fucking insane frame. Get into Octavia momentarily. For me, for you, it'll be a couple of days. So folks, thanks very much for watching. As always, we'll catch you in the next one, all right?